No one was supposed to survive an execution on the sky pillar of Aurelian. Billions across the galaxy had watched executions there. Prisoners floated above the capital world, bound by gravity fields, while the Celestial Queen passed judgment. Once the silver blade descended, nothing stopped it. Not armies. Not prayers. Not miracles. Yet on that day, a miracle stepped forward wearing human skin. Kale Aaron stood at the edge of the execution platform, hands bound behind his back, armor stripped, blood drying on his temple. He was a human engineer, captured during a failed evacuation mission. To the Celestial Court, he was nothing more than collateral debris from a lost war. In front of him, kneeling in a field of pale blue light, was the condemned. Her name was Seraphine Vallis. She was not human. Her skin shimmered like moonlit marble, etched with faint lines of living energy. Long silver hair flowed down her back, restrained by ceremonial clasps. Around her neck glowed the mark of betrayal, proof, they claimed, that she had defied the throne. She had spoken against genocide. For that, she was sentenced to die. Above them all sat the Celestial Queen. Queen Aethera of the High Dominion watched from her floating throne, expression carved from ice. Her crown burned with starlight. Her eyes had witnessed supernovas and extinctions alike. She had ordered this execution herself, not out of anger, but to preserve cosmic order. Humans were unpredictable. Mercy was dangerous. The executioner stepped forward. The blade he carried was not metal. It was condensed stellar force, shaped into a single edge. When it fell, it erased flesh, soul, and history. Final words, the herald announced. Seraphine lifted her head. I regret nothing, she said calmly. If compassion is treason, then the Empire is already dead. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Queen Aethera raised one finger. Silence returned. The blade lifted. Kale's heart pounded so hard he thought it would tear him apart. He had never met Seraphine before that day. He owed her nothing. She was alien royalty. He was a captured nobody. Yet he remembered what he had seen. He remembered the refugee ships she had hidden behind her fleets. The human children she had smuggled out of burning colonies. The orders she had disobeyed so civilians could live. She had saved lives. Now no one was saving her. The blade began to descend. Kale moved. Guards shouted. Restraint fields flared. Too late. With a raw scream of defiance, Kale ripped free of his bonds, skin tearing, muscles burning. He sprinted forward as the execution blade fell like a falling star. He did not hesitate. He jumped. The blade struck him instead. The impact was silent. For one impossible heartbeat, the universe froze. Kale collapsed in front of Seraphine, the stellar blade buried in his chest, light spilling through cracked armor and flesh. The energy meant to erase her existence tore into him instead. Pain unlike anything he had ever known exploded through his body. He could feel his heart burning, his breath turning to fire. But he was alive. The execution platform erupted into chaos. What have you done? A judge screamed. Guards raised weapons. The crowd stood in stunned silence. Seraphine stared at Kale, eyes wide with horror. Why? She whispered. Kale coughed, blood glowing faintly with residual energy. He forced a smile through the agony. Someone had to stand where everyone else stayed silent. The Celestial Queen rose from her throne. For the first time in centuries, her composure cracked. A human, she said slowly, voice echoing across the platform, has interrupted a celestial execution. Kale looked up at her, vision blurring, but his voice was steady. You were about to kill someone for showing mercy, he said. So if you want blood, take mine. Energy readings spiked. The blade, still embedded in Kale's chest, destabilized. Human biology was never meant to channel stellar weapons. His body should have disintegrated. But it didn't. Instead, the blade dimmed. The crowd gasped. Celestial scholars stared at their instruments in disbelief. Human neural patterns were adapting, absorbing, redirecting. Queen Aethera's eyes widened. That is impossible. Seraphine crawled forward, catching Kale as he slumped. Her hands glowed as she tried to heal him, tears spilling down her face. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please." Kale's breathing grew shallow. Above them, the execution blade shattered into harmless light. The sky pillar trembled. Queen Aethera descended slowly, her throne dissolving behind her. She stood before the broken human, staring down at him as the entire empire watched. "You took a blade meant for my justice," she said quietly. Kale met her gaze, defiant even now. "I took it because it was wrong." Silence stretched. Then, to the shock of all celestial law, Queen Aethera lowered her head. "You have done what no being has ever dared," she said. "You stood between power and mercy, and lived." She turned to the court. "Cancel the execution." Gasps turned into uproar. Seraphine collapsed in relief, holding Kale as healers rushed forward. Queen Aethera looked down at the human one last time. "From this moment," she declared, voice carrying across the stars, "this human is under my protection." Her eyes softened, just a fraction. "And I will learn," she said, "why humanity refuses to kneel." Kale smiled faintly, and finally lost consciousness. The galaxy would never be the same. Kale Aaron did not wake to peace. He woke to light, cold, white, endless, pressing against his eyelids like a second sun. Every breath burned. Every heartbeat felt borrowed. Somewhere far away, machines hummed in slow, patient rhythms, as if waiting to see whether he was worth saving. He opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was not metal. It was living crystal, transparent and softly glowing, veins of light moving through it like blood. Symbols drifted across its surface, rearranging themselves in patterns he did not understand. He was not on Earth. He tried to move. Pain answered immediately, sharp and deep, radiating from his chest. A low sound escaped his throat. "You're awake." The voice was calm, gentle, and unmistakably alien. Kale turned his head slightly. Seraphine sat beside him, her silver hair loose now, falling freely over her shoulders. The mark of betrayal was gone. In its place rested a faint, warm glow at her collarbone, an imperial seal. "You shouldn't be," she added softly. "But you are." Kale swallowed. "Still alive." She nodded. Against every prediction. Memory rushed back. The blade. The fall. The Queen's eyes. He laughed weakly. Figures. Seraphine did not smile. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "You absorbed the execution blade," she said. "No species has ever survived contact with one. Not even my own." "I didn't plan on it," Kale said. "Guess humans are bad at following plans." She looked at him for a long moment, then reached out and placed her hand over his chest. Beneath her palm, faint warmth pulsed where the blade had struck. "You changed something," she said. "Not just the outcome. The rules." Before Kale could respond, the chamber doors parted soundlessly. Queen Aethera entered. She did not wear her crown. Her presence alone bent the light around her, the air growing heavier, charged. Guards remained outside. This was not a command visit. It was personal. Kale met her gaze without flinching. The Queen stopped at the foot of the bed. "You should be dead," she said. "People keep saying that," Kale replied. A flicker, almost a smile, passed over her face before disappearing. "My healers say your cells adapted to stellar energy instead of rejecting it. Your species should not be capable of that." Kale shrugged carefully. "We adapt or we die. That's kind of our thing." Aethera's eyes shifted to Seraphine. "Leave us." Seraphine hesitated. "He is under my protection," the Queen said firmly. "And so are you." Reluctantly, Seraphine rose and exited, casting one last worried glance at Kale. Silence settled between human and Queen. "You humiliated me," Aethera said at last. Kale frowned. "Wasn't my goal." "You challenged the authority of the throne before the entire empire," she continued. "You forced me to choose between tradition and justice." Kale exhaled slowly. And I chose, she said quietly, not to kill you. That landed heavier than any threat. You know what happens now? Aethera asked. Kale shook his head. I'm guessing it's not a medal and a parade. The council demands your execution, she said. They say your survival is an anomaly that destabilizes celestial law. Human worlds are already being discussed as liabilities. Kale's jaw tightened. So this gets my people killed. It could have, she said. If you had begged. If you had pleaded. If you had feared me. She leaned closer. But you didn't. Her eyes burned, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous, curiosity. You stood in front of power, she said, and dared it to be better. Kale held her gaze. Someone had to. Aethera straightened. I will not execute you. Nor will I surrender you to the council. That sounds like a problem, Kale said. It is, she agreed. For them. She turned and walked toward the viewport, where the capital world spun below, wrapped in rings of light and traffic. Humans, she said, almost to herself. You are fragile. Short-lived. Reckless. And yet. She looked back at him. You are impossible to ignore. Alarms suddenly cut through the calm. Not emergency sirens. Political ones. Aethera did not flinch. It begins. The chamber doors opened again. A high-ranking celestial official entered, wings folded tight, eyes blazing. The council has convened an emergency tribunal, he said. They demand the human be surrendered immediately. Aethera's voice was ice. Denied. Outrage rippled through the official's aura. You cannot shield a foreign soldier who defied an execution. The law. The law, Aethera interrupted, failed. The official froze. You saw it, she continued. A human absorbed a celestial blade. He survived not because of strength, but because he chose sacrifice. She turned back to Kale. Tell me, she said, why did you do it? Kale didn't answer right away. He thought of Earth. Of burned cities and evacuation ships. Of being told that survival sometimes required becoming cruel. Because if power only protects itself, he said, then it deserves to fall. The chamber was utterly silent. The official stepped back, shaken. Aethera nodded once, slowly. There it is, she said. The flaw in our empire. She faced the official. Inform the council. The human will remain alive. And from this moment on, humans will no longer be classified as inferior species. The official stared. You cannot. I am the throne, Aethera said, and I have decided to learn from them. He bowed stiffly and left. When they were alone again, Aethera approached Kale's bedside. You have made enemies you cannot imagine, she said. Kale smiled faintly. Story of my life. She studied him, then did something no celestial ruler had done in recorded history. She extended her hand. Then stand with me, she said. Teach me how a fragile species defies the universe and survives. Kale looked at her hand, then took it. Careful, he said. We're contagious. Far beyond the chamber, whispers spread through the stars. A human had survived celestial judgment. And the Empire had blinked first. The Council did not wait. They never did when fear disguised itself as tradition. Within hours of Kale's survival becoming public, the celestial capital changed. The air felt tighter. Ships altered their flight paths. Communication towers pulsed with encrypted traffic. Entire star systems leaned forward, watching. Kale felt it before anyone told him. He was standing for the first time since the execution attempt, legs unsteady, chest wrapped in glowing biofiber. The pain was still there, dull and constant, but manageable. Humans were good at that, carrying pain like an old companion. Seraphine stood nearby, pretending not to hover. You should rest, she said for the fourth time. I've rested enough to die twice, Kale replied. I want to see what I broke. Her lips curved despite herself. They were in a high observation hall now, walls open to space. The capital world turned slowly below them, beautiful and cruel at the same time. That view used to inspire awe, Seraphine said quietly. Now it makes me wonder how many lives were decided without ever being seen. Kale followed her gaze. That's power for you. Makes distance feel like permission. She looked at him sharply. You speak as if you've faced it before. I have, he said. Just with different faces. The doors opened. Queen Aethera entered, flanked by no guards this time. That alone told Kale how serious things were. They are moving, she said without preamble. The council has declared you a destabilizing variable. Kale raised an eyebrow. That sounds official. It is, she replied. They intend to make an example of you. Publicly, politely, legally. Seraphine stiffened. You said he was under your protection. He is, Aethera said. Which is why they will not strike directly. Kale frowned. So what's the angle? They will strike your people, Aethera said. Silence fell hard. Kale's jaw tightened. Earth. Not yet, she said. But the outer colonies. Trade lanes. Aid convoys. Accidents. Seraphine's voice shook. This is because of me. No, Kale said immediately. It's because of fear. Aethera studied him. Explain. You built an empire on the idea that power flows one way, Kale said. From the top down. From the eternal to the short-lived. From you to everyone else. Then a human stood in front of your blade and didn't die. He met her eyes. That scares them more than rebellion ever could. Aethera was silent for a long moment. You speak truth far too easily, she said. Kale shrugged. Truth's lighter when you don't dress it up. Before she could respond, the hall lights dimmed. A holographic projection burst to life in the center of the room. The Celestial Council. 12 figures, ancient and radiant, their forms shaped by centuries of genetic refinement and cosmic energy. They floated in a ring, expressions unified in cold resolve. Queen Aethera, the lead counselor intoned, you have violated imperial law. Aethera did not bow. I upheld justice. You protected a human anomaly, another voice said. A species proven volatile. Kale stepped forward before anyone could stop him. Funny, he said. You sound exactly like every tyrant humanity's ever outlived. Gasps rippled through the holograms. Seraphine reached for him. Kale. Let him speak, Aethera said. Kale faced the council, shoulders squared, pain forgotten. You're not wrong about humans, he continued. We are volatile. We're messy. We make mistakes. But when something's wrong, we don't wait for permission to fix it. One counselor sneered. You are nothing but a soldier. Wrong, Kale said calmly. I'm a choice. The council's energy flared. You presume too much, the lead counselor said. Your kind survives by luck, not design. Kale smiled faintly. Then it's funny how luck keeps beating design. Aethera raised her hand. The chamber stilled. This conversation ends now, she said. The human will not be surrendered. The council's tone hardened. Then you leave us no choice. The holograms vanished. Alarms screamed. Not inside the capital. Outside it. Aethera turned sharply. Report. A voice crackled over the hall's comms. Unidentified fleet exiting slipspace at the perimeter. Council sigils confirmed. Seraphine's eyes widened. They wouldn't. They would, Aethera said grimly. A show of force. A reminder. Kale looked at the tactical display blooming across the air. Dozens of massive warforms, ancient and terrifying, their weapons powered by stars themselves. And you? Kale asked. What do you do? Aethera's gaze did not leave the display. I defend my throne. Kale shook his head. No. You defend your people. She looked at him. He stepped closer. There's a difference. Humans learned it the hard way. The capital's defense grid activated. Energy shields flared like newborn suns. The council fleet advanced anyway. Seraphine whispered, "This will be a massacre." Kale's mind raced. Human tactics weren't built for this scale. But humans never won by matching power. They won by changing the game. "Your shields," he said suddenly. "They're harmonic, right?" Aethera nodded. "They resonate with the planet's core." Kale's eyes lit up. "That's the problem." She stared. "Explain." "They'll hit you where you're strongest," Kale said. "Overload the resonance. Make you shatter yourself." Aethera inhaled sharply. "That knowledge is restricted." Kale shrugged. "Humans break restricted things. It's another habit." He pointed at the display. "Let me help." The Queen hesitated. Then she nodded. Minutes later, Kale stood at a command interface he should never have been allowed near. His fingers moved fast, human intuition filling gaps celestial logic never considered. Seraphine watched in disbelief. "You're rewriting shield protocols in real time." "Improvising," Kale corrected. "Big difference." The first council volley hit. Space screamed. The shields bent, but did not resonate. They absorbed, redirected, diffused. Council warforms faltered. Aethera's breath caught. "What did you do?" Kale didn't look up. "I made them human." The council fleet slowed, confused, then retreated. Silence followed. Across the capital world, millions watched in shock. A human had not only survived celestial judgment, he had saved the throne from itself. Aethera turned to Kale, something profound shifting in her eyes. "You did not just defend my empire," she said. "You changed how it fights." Kale leaned back, exhausted. "Good. Because next time." He met her gaze. "We won't be reacting." Far away, in the dark between stars, the council began planning something far worse. And humanity had just been invited to the table. The galaxy did not calm after the council's retreat. It held its breath. News spread faster than light ever could. A human had rewritten celestial defenses. A queen had listened. An empire that claimed perfection had been forced to adapt by a species it once dismissed as temporary. That kind of story did not fade. It ignited. Kale felt it the moment he stepped onto the capital's lower terraces. The crowds were different now. Celestial citizens watched him openly, some with awe, others with fear, a few with resentment sharp enough to taste. He was no longer a prisoner. He was a symbol. Seraphine walked beside him, her presence steady. "You should not be here," she said softly. "Not yet." "If I hide," Kale replied, "they decide what I am. I'd rather show them myself." Ahead, a group of workers paused their tasks. One lowered his head in respect. Another turned away. A third whispered something that sounded like a prayer. Seraphine exhaled. "They are afraid of what you represent." Kale nodded. "So are my people. We just learned to live with it." Above them, the sky darkened, not from weather, but from shadow. Aethera's voice echoed through the city, carried by every tower and crystal spire. "Citizens of the Dominion," she announced, "remain calm." Kale looked up. A single vessel had appeared above the capital. Smaller than a war form. Sleeker. Its hull carried no sigils, no colors. Council black craft. Seraphine's hand tightened around Kale's arm. "They are not here to negotiate." The craft descended with surgical precision, landing on the sky pillar itself, the same place where Kale had taken the blade. A message followed, broadcast across every channel. "One life," the council said. "For peace." Kale felt the meaning settle like ice in his gut. Aethera arrived moments later, her expression storm-dark. "They want you," she said. "Public surrender. Private execution." Kale let out a slow breath. That's efficient. Seraphine shook her head violently. No. We will not allow this. Kale turned to her. This is how they think, he said gently. Remove the variable. Restore the pattern. You are not a variable, she said. You are human, he finished. And that means sometimes we step forward so others don't have to. Aethera's voice sharpened. I will not give you to them. Kale met her gaze. Then they'll come anyway. And next time, they won't stop at a message. Silence stretched between them. You once asked me why humans survive, Kale said. This is part of it. Seraphine's eyes filled. You already took the blade for me. Kale smiled faintly. Guess I'm consistent. Before either of them could argue further, the sky pillar trembled. The council craft opened. Figures emerged, tall, featureless, wrapped in null fields that bent light and sound. Assassins. Not soldiers. The crowd screamed. Kale moved without thinking. He grabbed a fallen tool from a nearby stall and hurled it, not at the assassins, but at a power conduit overhead. Sparks exploded. The terrace plunged into partial darkness. Evacuate, he shouted. Now. People hesitated, then ran. The assassins advanced, silent and precise. Aethera raised her hand, energy flaring. The lead assassin spoke at last. Step aside, Queen. This ends now. Kale stepped forward instead. You really don't learn, he said. The assassins attacked. Kale didn't fight like a celestial. He didn't fight like a hero. He fought like a human. He used the environment. Reflections. Distractions. Broken lines of sight. He drew them away from civilians, forcing them into narrow corridors where numbers meant nothing. Seraphine joined him, her abilities precise, controlled. She disabled rather than destroyed. Saved rather than punished. Aethera watched, understanding dawning. Humans did not dominate. They adapted. One assassin reached Kale, blade humming. Kale caught it with his bare hand. The weapon screamed as human nerves overloaded its harmonic field. The assassin recoiled in shock. Kale drove his shoulder forward, knocking it off balance. You want me, he said through clenched teeth. Earn it. The fight ended quickly after that. Not because the assassins were weak, but because they were predictable. When the last one fell, the sky pillar stood silent once more. The council craft did not retreat. It waited. Aethera turned to Kale. This will not stop. Kale nodded. I know. He looked out over the city, at the people watching him now not with fear, but with hope. Then let's change the rules again. Seraphine stepped beside him. How? Kale smiled. By doing what humans do best, he said. We show them they can't control the story anymore. Far beyond the capital, the council prepared its final move. And for the first time, it was afraid. The council's final move did not come with warnings. It came with silence. Across the outer systems, stars went dark, not exploding, not collapsing, simply vanishing from the celestial network. Gates shut down. Trade lanes froze. Entire regions of space were cut off as if erased from a map. The council was isolating the empire. Not to conquer it. To starve it. In the capital command hall, projections flickered wildly. Advisors spoke over one another. Panic crept into voices that had never known it. They are shutting down the stellar relays. Our fleets cannot jump. Civilian systems will fail within cycles. Queen Aethera stood at the center of it all, silent, her hands clenched behind her back. Kale watched the chaos unfold and felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. This wasn't a battle meant to be won with weapons. It was pressure. Slow. Crushing. They're betting you'll give me up, Kale said quietly. Aethera did not deny it. Seraphine stepped forward. If the systems fail, billions will suffer. Kale nodded. That's how control works. You make mercy expensive. Aethera turned to him then. I will not surrender you. Kale met her eyes. Then don't. She frowned. That is not an answer. It is, he said. Just not the one you're expecting. He stepped toward the central interface. Humans have been cut off before, Kale continued. Blockades. Blackouts. Empires deciding we didn't deserve access. Seraphine watched him closely. What did you do? Kale smiled, tired but steady. We learned how to live without permission. His fingers moved across the controls, not rewriting, not overriding, but disconnecting. What are you doing? An advisor demanded. Freeing you, Kale replied. One by one, the celestial systems decoupled from the Council's stellar network. Power rerouted locally. Ships switched to independent navigation. Cities dimmed, but did not die. The Council's leverage disappeared. Aethera inhaled sharply. You are dismantling centuries of infrastructure. Decentralizing, Kale corrected. Makes you harder to control. A new transmission cut through the hall. The Council. You are condemning your empire, the lead counselor hissed. Aethera stepped forward, voice carrying strength none could deny. No. I am ending your ownership of it. Silence followed. Then Kale did something no one expected. He stepped into the broadcast frame. This ends now, he said, looking directly at the Council. Not with war. Not with executions. He took a breath. You tried to control the galaxy by deciding who mattered. Humans learned a long time ago that systems like that always break. The counselor sneered. You are one human. Kale nodded. And that was enough. He raised his hand and triggered the final sequence. Across human space, ships moved. Civilian freighters. Old military carriers. Exploration vessels held together with stubbornness and hope. They didn't attack. They arrived. Human ships flooded the disconnected systems, carrying food, medicine, engineers, and power cores. Not soldiers. Help. Seraphine's eyes widened. You planned this. Kale smiled softly. We prepared. Humans do that when we think someone's about to make a bad choice. The Council watched in stunned silence as their strategy collapsed. Aethera felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest. Relief. The Councillor's voice trembled. You undermine cosmic order. Kale's expression hardened. No. We replace it with something better. The transmission cut. The Council was finished. Days later, the sky pillar filled again, but not for death. For declaration. Queen Aethera stood before the gathered empire. Beside her stood Seraphine. And beside her, Kale Aaron. Human. Unarmed. Today, Aethera announced, we acknowledge a truth long ignored. She looked at Kale. Strength is not domination. Order is not silence. And power does not flow from eternity alone. She turned to the people. Humanity will no longer stand outside our history. The crowd erupted, not in fear, but in unity. Later, as the stars drifted peacefully beyond the observation hall, Seraphine approached Kale. You changed everything, she said. Kale shook his head. No. I just stood where it mattered. Aethera joined them, her gaze thoughtful. The Council called you a destabilizing force, she said. Kale chuckled. They're not wrong. She studied him, then inclined her head. Then stay, she said. Not as a symbol. Not as a weapon. As a reminder. Kale looked out at the galaxy, vast, dangerous, and finally open. All right, he said. But fair warning. She raised an eyebrow. Humans have a habit, Kale said, smiling. Once we're invited in, we don't stop helping. Far away, new stories began. Not of empires, but of people. And in the quiet between stars, the universe learned something new. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity shows up.